Ring a ring, it's time for another episode of Crossplay Conversations, the show where we dive deep into the world of video games while keeping it light. I'm your host, Joseph Hooper, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts. We're gonna have to have a little discussion about this nickname because I might have screwed this one up. The blonde bomber, Jacob McCourt. Are you blonde?
I mean, technically I am. Just look at, if you're watching the video version, I'm in a hotel, and you can see my very burned forehead and my blonde hair.
I see it. Yeah, it was this thing of, growing up African American and me thinking blonde was like your hair was like legit yellow. And then I heard about like dirty blonde and people were like, oh yeah, my hair is blonde. I'm like, what the heck? That's brown. Mm-hmm. And then I still really don't know truly the range of blonde, if I'm being honest, but you're the
Well, have you watched the successful Prime Video show Off Campus?
Never heard of this show. Wait, Is this new? Is this new?
This is
Maybe
new.
I have
This is the hockey. This is the hockey show that every.
Yeah, we just watched
about.
this. It's good.
Okay. So Dean from that show, bleach blonde hair. That is a blonde bomber.
Okay.
Me,
okay.
I'm a dirty blonde bomber.
You got a little
Dirty
ginger in there.
Yeah, I'm also like kind of fake
there's
ginger,
a little
but
Irish. Yeah, that's
yeah,
fair.
and there's gray in the beard too. So anyway,
Okay, we have another one we might have to discuss a little bit.
another one.
Our other co-host today, the virtuoso Claire Lewis. So, yeah, I had to look up synonyms for somebody who plays music really well, and I saw virtuoso, and I was like, I didn't know that's what that meant. So, you're the virtuoso today, Claire.
Awesome. I will take it. I did just get in like an argument with family members about this a couple weeks ago when someone called me that, and I was like, I don't technically do like virtuosic playing. I play viola mostly as an orchestral player. Virtuosic is more like when you see the violin doing the crazy stuff with all the, playing multiple strings at once, hands flying all over the place. I'm more over here doing like the boom chucks. But hey, I will take it any day. I will take the compliment.
I just accidentally validated a family member's argument against you and saying this up. I feel so bad now. That's all right. We're going to feel a little worse in just a little bit, but we're going to bring it all back. The icebreaker is light. We're keeping it light. I want to know, what's everybody playing nowadays? What's on your docket? Just real quick, what you got your eyes on, what you got your fingers on. Claire, I'll start with you.
I am playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. I never played the original, but I watched my brother play it. And at the time I was just like, I don't know about this like combat and like the third person thing. My only experience with action games at that time was Skyrim, and I was just like, this looks a little too different, so I didn't get into it. And I'm having a great time. Super fun. Really liking it. I love swimming in the beautiful crystal blue waters, and I barely started, but I'm having a great time. And other than that, still grinding at Procopia. And I just got Tiny Bookshop on my phone, so I'm going to check it out on mobile.
I'm excited to play Tiny Bookshop someday.
It's so cute. It's so good. It's fun. As a book nerd, Tiny Bookshop is so fun, especially when you have books in your little bookshop that you've actually read, and you're like, oh, I know this person would like this book in the game because I've read it, not just based on the synopsis, and like the real book thing is really cool. So
the protagonist of 4 has a weird name. It's like Kiersey or Kersey, isn't it? Did I just make up a protagonist name?
I've never played 4 as well.
Assassin's Creed 4?
Is it not? I thought it was a normal name. Hold on, I've got to look it up. Because he's, right now, the part, like I said, I just started it. He's got an alias he's using, so I can't remember.
Oh, Edward Kenway.
There we go. That's pretty normal.
I was going to say Andrew. Yeah, that's a normal name.
Andrew Ryan. Got it. Yes.
All right, Jacob, what are you playing?
I have been almost exclusively playing through Disco Elysium, the Final Cut, for the first time. We're playing it for the Left Behind Game Club, and so I'm about 20 hours into that bad boy. And let me tell you, it did not stick with me in the first couple hours. I tried to play it while I was in the hospital. I tried to play it when I got out of the hospital. I just wasn't in the right... I'm fine. I wasn't in the right frame of mind for it. Got a couple hours in. The feedback I got on it was like, your first play session needs to be like 2 hours. Just like, get into it. It'll take you 2 hours to just like understand what's going on.
Oh.
Your first play session.
Gotcha.
I played that first play session. I was hooked. And there are very few games that small things happen in the opening 15 hours that have huge implications on the end of the game and huge payoffs that were genuinely shocking. Just like, wow. I'm like, I can't believe they're doing this multiple times in the final few hours.
Oh, wow.
So I'm excited to see where it goes. I think I've got maybe 2 or 3 hours left to play. I'm going to play it on my Steam Deck, and on Steam Deck, it's been pretty good so far too. In addition to that, I've also been watching the documentary on People Make Games about the goings-on at Zaum, and let me tell you, what a story that is. So I'd strongly recommend playing Disco Elysium. If you play it on the short end, it's like a 25-hour game. You can play it for much longer. I know that one of my colleagues on the show, Travis, has played it for 60. I'm going to find out how he did that, but we're gonna find out. I'm assuming he just played it multiple times or did some save scumming. But that documentary, the first one by People Make Games, 2.5 hours, crazy story.
Yeah, cool. I got to restart it. It's one of those games where it's like a very heavy game, not in terms of like content, but like you're reading a lot. The decisions you make, you kind of really have to think about. If you're like, at least for me, I'm like, I want to read every decision, see what every character's talking about. So I got like maybe 15 hours in, and then for whatever reason, something else came along and I dropped it. And now it's like, I can never go back to that playthrough. I have to start all the way from the beginning. So
what day did you get to in your playthrough? Do you remember?
This was years ago. And another thing is I didn't play the final cut, so there was no voice acting when I played either.
Oh man,
which
I can't imagine playing this game without voice acting.
Yeah. I definitely have to go back from the beginning and play. Yeah.
Hoop, what are you playing?
Yeah, I will say that I am playing Dinsh Attack. Dinsh Attack is
out.
Almost out. By the time of this video, it will be out. Very great game. Very, very great game. I'm actually just kind of floored by how much I'm enjoying it. I'm very excited to see like what the reviews will be, because I'm like, this game could be high, like 85 plus territory, just because I feel like it feels almost like a Sonic game or something like that, in a way where like I played the demo and I was like, oh, I think I know what this game is. But now that I'm playing, and I played the demo like 6 times, I'm like, this is fun. If the game is just this is going to be great. But after playing the full game, I was pretty surprised at like how big the game is in terms of like how many levels that they've made and just how wacky things get and how many different abilities are thrown into the fray. Like I'm still learning abilities where I am in the game, which is crazy to me.
So I shouldn't drop it for Fantasy Critic, is what you're saying?
I don't think you can. It's too late now.
Oh, I'm not gonna, because it's gonna be great.
Yeah. First of all, I also was thinking, I was thinking in my head, who has that? And of course, it's Jacob. You know what?
I'm gonna go for a 3-peat in our league this year.
Well, sir, I don't know if you saw, but Doom the Dark Ages just came out to a 90, so you got somebody knocking on your doorstep here.
Yeah, Hooper, who's that?
It's me.
I'm
trying to reclaim my crown, all right?
No disrespect to anybody else on that Fantasy Critic, but you're the only person I'm scared of. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. I'm surprised, because I got Yakuza Dark Ties. That was the first game I got in the year, and it got like a 75, and I'm like, oh, I'm losing this year. But just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Anyways, guys, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Obviously right now, really, we're really looking for good news in the gaming industry. It's all bad every day. It seems like there's a news story that's just terrible, either worse than the last or just like, kicking you while you're down. from basically every angle. People are getting laid off right as their games are releasing. Obviously, all the megacorp stuff, Xbox, PlayStation, it's just all really bad. So what we're going to do here first, all right, I'm going to give people the floor to have a short vent sesh if you want. If you don't have anything to vent about, honestly, you can vent about whatever you want, even if it's a little annoying feature in a game you played recently or whatever. I'm going to give you a short vent sesh. Keep it to like 60, 90 seconds. And then we're going to kind of talk about other things that may be more interesting or positive. So this time, Jacob, I know you probably have a lot of thoughts. That's why I'm capping you at 90 seconds. Maybe you don't. But I'll go ahead and vent. What's on your mind right now?
All right. So obviously we've all seen the news, Xbox, PlayStation, both bad. I'm not going to go over the news headlines because it's been a couple of weeks and everybody knows what's going on. I think the one thing that we should maybe remember here is that mergers and acquisitions typically are bad for users. And I think there was probably a time where I had cheered for, in a silly way, maybe not cheered, but maybe thought like, oh man, who else is Microsoft going to acquire? And not caveat that with, it's probably going to be bad for them. And I regret that. And so as a longtime Xbox fan, it's really hard to look at the brand and not think to yourself, I'm not sure I'm ever going to come back. And so that's the Xbox side, and the PlayStation side, obviously, killing physical games in 2028. It's going to be real tough to support either console. I'm a big physical media fan. We've talked about the benefits, or I'm sure many people have talked about the benefits. Even though you don't really own the game, you own a license to the game that's physical, but at least it's property that can be traded between people. That will be gone. The collectability of games will be gone. You can't trade them in. You get no value on them. And we just control marketplaces in a way that I think is very anti-consumer. So is gaming a hobby that I look at without the destruction of human lives these days? Not really. But we're here, and we're doing a podcast. So thanks, Hooper, for the floor. You can take it back now.
Absolutely. Thank you. I will be taking it back. Claire, is there anything on your mind right now?
I mean, it's all just so much, and it really just comes down to corporations are never going to treat their employees like people. And it sucks, but it's also what they do. And we can't, they want to act like, especially games corporations, want to act like they're super cool and like they're our friends and we're all just buddies, but no. We just need to all band together and really advocate. And I would just really love to see, like, unionization, mass unionization is just the only way that we're going to really protect the industry and the people who actually make the art from the people who make the money. And hopefully make the money go to the people who make art instead of the people who make money for making money. And then I have a lot of feelings about Gen AI that don't all relate to gaming right now, and that I cannot keep to 90 seconds. So not getting into that right now.
Okay. Very well. I'll end us off here with, I think my main frustration recently is that there are a lot of teams or just studios or whatever that have like made really cool games that I love. And I think just the concept of those specific teams that have like found success maybe a decade ago or even further back than that, I just feel like a lot of those teams are hindered in a billion different ways, whether it's they got acquired by Microsoft or PlayStation, or shut down by Microsoft or PlayStation, or maybe they had made so much money in the past that now they no longer can afford to take risks, or maybe the development cycle for their games are just astronomically large, where we're talking about 5-6+ years to see anything from these people that, you know, in the past may have churned out titles every year, every other year, or whatever. So it just kind of sucks that I feel like that piece of the industry is seeming more and more lost every day. Like Arcane not being sure like if I'll ever see another title from Arcane or what that'll even look like. Being disappointed about like the Blue Point closure and like just imagining all the things that we might have gotten from them, similar to the Demon Souls remake that, you know, just wowed everybody. And just thinking, oh, well, now we won't get anything from them in the future. It just kind of sucks. I think, you know, there is like a changing of the guard. There are teams that are still doing really cool stuff, which we'll talk about today. But that's kind of like my worst thing is like we grew up with a lot of these developers, and it kind of just feels like our like memories and our like, I don't know what you would call it, are just kind of being wiped out as we go.
No, I agree with you. Can I make a recommendation? I promise this is not soapbox time. We're past that. Jason Schreier, everyone's favorite YouTuber, I guess, is making these great explainers. I think it's anytime a video of his pops up with the bad thumbnails, I'm just into it. He put out a video in May called Why Video Games Cost So Much to Make. And the man just literally pulls out a calculator and says, this is how much the average game maker makes in California or in New York, and tells us why games cost so much money to make. Yeah. It's a great watch. And on the other side, you talk about indie and how maybe indies are pigeonholed, maybe they're stuck. I think indie, as much as people say like, just go indie, there is fundamental basic risk to being an independent team that you have to feel when you don't work for a, you know, big corpo like PlayStation or Xbox. But on the other side, we make these $300 million bets and they maybe don't work out. Is gaming broken? I think the answer is yes. How do we fix it? I wish I knew.
Discuss it today. We'll see. So for the record, everybody at home listening or in your car, wherever at work, Claire and Jacob do not know the agenda. So I'm just going to be throwing them random questions about the game industry, and we're just going to see where this goes, because I wanted to start with a blast from the past. All right, because a lot of times we're talking about, hey, gaming is not as good as it used to be, gaming sucks now, everything's bad. I want to kind of look back and think about why each one of us view the past as like this magical time in gaming. And I'm going to give you guys some time to think about these. So I'll go first and I'll let you guys ruminate just a little bit. But kind of just starting with like the whimsy and magic of like those early years of gaming, at least for me growing up. I think there's a combination of things, right? I think that for one, I was new to gaming. Like I grew up with gaming, but almost every time I would boot up a game for the first several years of my enjoyment of the hobby, a good chance you throw a dart and this is a concept I've never seen before. Like one of my favorite games that I think back about fondly is Oddworld Stranger's Wrath, right? And I'm like, oh, you're a bounty hunter, and you're like hunting for your own ammo, and you're catching all these outlaws. And I'm like, this is like incredible. This is one of the best games of all time. I look back at it now, and I'm like, you know, it was an all right game in execution. The concept's still really cool, but it's like I'd never seen anything like that before. And also, I just feel like it's a pro and a con that gaming was not as saturated as it was back in the day, because I remember seeing one trailer dominate the news cycle for forever. Like the BioShock trailer, when that came out, everybody was like, oh, no way, what is this? This is crazy. And I was kind of like obsessing over it until the game came out. I think right now we're kind of inundated with trailers and new games to think about. Like there's literally no time to breathe in terms of like trying to understand what's going on in the industry. But I don't know if we'll get to the idea of like if it's rose tinted glasses or whatnot, but like my most fond memories are those things like that kind of more relate to me as being a new gamer, less so than maybe things being done right back in the day. But Jacob, I want to get your thoughts on that.
I think you alluded to something that I've come to realize lately, that old games are mostly bad.
Kind of, yeah.
And I think that's I think maybe we, to your point, look at some games with rose-colored glasses. But apart from some real classics that aren't hindered by old tech, I think anything Unreal, like 3, it doesn't look or play as good as you remember. And the only games that really play well are Nintendo games and some other timeless. Like, try and play Psychonauts in 2026.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that doesn't hold up. The charm of Double Fine holds up, absolutely. But the game to play is rough. And so I think that folks gaming in 2026 have to realize that we are playing the best games we've ever played. And if you don't feel that way, you're probably just an old like we are, and you've just seen it. The thing I think about a lot is I think about the fact that we are still paying $60 for games. And I don't want an executive from a video game company to listen to this. So, hey, if you're listening to this right now, video game executive, turn it off for like 30 seconds. Game prices should be higher. A $60 game in 1996 is a $120 game today. And we don't pay that $60 or that $120. And so some might say that we're still underpaying for games. There's a lot of factors at play. I don't want to give game executives ideas, but we're maybe not even paying enough for our games.
So before we move on to Claire here, I do want to know what got little Jacob out of the bed back in the day. Like, when you're talking about, like, if you kind of just clear your mind and think about, oh man, that got me so excited back in the day. What memories come to mind?
I just guest hosted on a show on the Superpod Network where we talked about the Nintendo GameCube. And I am probably the world's biggest Nintendo GameCube apologist and fan. And so there's this golden era of gaming in the early aughts that I think about a lot when I was in my teens, where we would play WarioWare or play Ultimate Muscle or play Mario Kart or F-Zero GX. And just that specific era of Nintendo, I still have like huge nostalgia for. So if that ages me, whatever. But that's kind of where I think that is the greatest era of gaming in my mind, even though most of those games are dog water in 2026.
Blair, I know, like, you played games growing up, and then when you met Luke, like, your powers kind of like double, triple, whatever you want to say. Like,
yeah.
What's your experience with like that whimsy from the past?
Yeah, I think I definitely grew up in a more casual gaming household. But for me, it's the same as Jacob. I was just younger at the time, slightly. We had the Wii, and I remember the Wii came out, and then we went from just being like, we had a couple Game Boys to keep us occupied on long car rides, versus like all of our friends have gaming consoles, and we have gaming consoles, and that's like an event of going over to a friend's house to play games together. Wasn't really something we had up until then. And then my brothers got we all got a 360, but it was mostly for them, Xbox 360. So like that era, and we were really late to that party, so we got it really late, but that era definitely was like, for me, opening up of like, oh, this is cool, this is fun, and this is something that I can access. Also at the time, I just felt like kind of kept out of the world of games. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. A lot of the people I knew who played games were not playing the kinds of games that I didn't know existed, that I would have liked to play at that time. Like, if I had known that, like, Harvest Moon existed at the time, or if someone had, given me a Zelda game to play, it would have been a different story. But I loved Super Mario Galaxy. I played so much Mario Kart. I was like on the internet leaderboards as a middle schooler. Like, I was just obsessed. And then I like fell super in love with Skyrim. So like those are the games that give me that nostalgia and that whimsy. And I still love playing Mario Kart, It's just so much fun. It never stops being fun.
So there's something you said which kind of like leads into another thing I wanted to eventually talk about. But honestly, I feel like there's a lot of times in recent memory where I don't know if it's how, like, the types of games that are made today or just me as a person, but I definitely feel like I've played so many games in my life at this point that my bar for being impressed is just so much higher, and I kind of hate that for myself. It's a natural occurrence. I feel like even for movies, I love horror movies, but me saying a horror movie is good compared to like 10, 15 years ago, like I have a much higher bar for my favorite type of genre, right? Like, I'm curious if you both have that feeling as well, because one, my partner Amanda does not really play many games. So I feel like I am constantly surprised when we play a game together, whether it's Dispatch or, Split Fiction or whatever. And she's like, oh man, like that was so fun. Or like even the first Haze-like game where you're breaking out of a prison, or As Dusk Falls. Games that I'm like, these are good, but I was like, I don't necessarily need to go back and finish them. She's like, are we ever going to finish As Dusk Falls? And I'm like, you enjoyed it that much that you're thinking about going back to finish it? And I just feel like I'm kind of desensitized, and I hope maybe that's not the case, and I will continue to be wowed and impressed by different games. But I'm curious if you guys feel that way, having both played lots and lots of games, especially in recent memory. Jacob?
I mean, I was talking about Disco Elysium when we started the show. Disco Elysium is one of the best RPGs made in the last 10 years. And even that one, I was a little apprehensive, or it was kind of like, yeah, I don't know. And then now go, yeah, this game is really great. That game's a masterpiece. That game is just a beautifully crafted world that tells a story brimming with political intrigue that few games hit. And there are 20 plus different voices in your head that all represent different attributes. And each one of those voices is unique. And they've had to take all that into account and write everything for it. That game's a masterpiece. And even then, I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's great. So I think we're just olds. But let me flip it on its head and go, I think the kids don't, realize what they have. Fortnite is insane. If you would have explained to 16-year-old me that, hey, actually, you're going to play this shooter and it's multiplayer, it's third person, and every single IP that you hold dear in your heart will be there shooting a gun at each other. Maybe except Nintendo, but Peter Griffin is going to shoot a gun at a Banana Man and you're going to love it. And the multiplayer is fabulous and perfect online. Those kids don't appreciate it because they're just like, yeah, this is just the way games are. And we don't appreciate it because we've been there, done that.
Yeah. I think back, oh man, like this is how twisted my mind is, in that one of my fondest memories, my fondest gaming memories was as a kid. I had Simpsons Road Rage, not even Hit and Run, the one that everybody loves. I had Simpsons Road Rage, and me and my buddy used to spend hours playing the multiplayer, which is effectively you have to deliver, Springfield characters to their destination, and you can like bump into the other player's car to steal the person and deliver them to their destination, whatever. We used to play hours inventing our own game mode where you would pick up Ralph Wiggum and try and give him to the other person because he was annoying. And like, it was like it was like hot potato, but with Ralph Wiggum. Like, that's so dumb. And it's like, my favorite gaming memory is me modifying a basic ass game mode to just be this like imaginary mode that me and my friend made up. Like, that's so dumb. And meanwhile, like, I'm like, like, I don't know, like the latest Naughty Dog game might be a little overrated or something. Like, not exactly that, but it's just like, I step out of my body for a second and I'm just like, bro, what is wrong with you? Like, I just feel my whole views on like enjoyment are kind of distorted now. But Claire, let me hear your thoughts.
I have a question. My thought is a question. I wonder how much of that is because of y'all/our relationship with games as like we do content. We play a ton of games, y'all more than me, a ton of games all the time with a critical eye versus just being a casual enjoyer, someone who picks up a game because it looks interesting, maybe or maybe not. Like there's all these people out there who have such a more casual relationship with games who I think are still having that like, wow, this is incredible about games today because they don't have that mindset. So I wonder about that.
I think you're absolutely right. And the game that made me realize, or like even kind of like, realize the thing that you were saying is Clear Obscure, because I played that game the day it released, because I play a lot of these blockbuster games the day it released because I'm a sicko. Meanwhile, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I'll get around to it in a year or several months down the road, whatever. I played it at release, and I remember being like, yo, it's cool, but I've played a lot of JRPGs, and, the map is kind of like, there's a lot of like glaring things that I feel like other JRPGs do better. And as it blew up over the year, I remember I was so baffled. Like, how are people saying this is the greatest game of all time when there's such glaring, pitfalls that it walks into in certain areas. And then it kind of just made me realize, like the way that all of these different elements come together, the way that the music is, the art is, the story is, and all coming together in, this really neat package is just a magical moment for a lot of people that don't really interact with games that often. Like, imagine it's kind of like me going into Dune Part 3 this year and being like, holy shit, that was incredible, because I only see 5 or 6 movies a year, as opposed to the person who watches movies every weekend. So yeah, like I totally do think it's our relationship with games because we're so ingrained in the hobby. Jacob?
You bring up Clair Obscur, and I think Clair Obscur is just a really interesting example of that is a game creatively that is a unicorn. We talk about masterpieces. I'm okay throwing out the M word for Clair Obscur Expedition 33. But Kepler Interactive...
Oh, Masterpiece. Okay.
Masterpiece. Kepler Interactive is a private company backed by NetEase money. And they get to work on these games like Sifu, like Chia, like Pacific Drive, like at Clair Obscur Expedition 33, that are mid-budget games with 40 to 60, I'm making a number up, a decent amount of employees who get to work on their craft for 4, 6, 8 years, and then deliver a thing with modest expectations. Where does that happen elsewhere in the games industry? It's a rare thing, and that's why you get rare titles like Clair Obscur. It's not the question you asked, but I thought I would say it. Going back to, I can't believe you guys let me get away with saying games should be more expensive, but okay.
Yeah, I kind of... Let's take a step back from even the masterpieces, because I know we talked about Disco Elysium and Clair Obscur, and I think those, nobody's really going to make an argument against those titles. But I also kind of tip my hat to some of these games that we see on Metacritic, OpenCritic hit like a 70-something and brush off. But once again, there are people who are like, oh, I played this game. I don't play many games. I just somehow heard about this, and now this is my thing. I'm addicted to this game. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just like, once again, like Claire said, a product of our relationship with game. Like, it's just impossible to look at games the same way as we did when we were kids. Like, just think about, like I said, I picked up not even Outworld Strangers Wrath, another one of my favorite games that I have back there, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. That game, this like in 2026, would probably, it would get slammed, and people would be like, it's not worth playing. Like, don't bother. But back when I was a kid, I was just shielded from all of this. I didn't know about E3. Like, I didn't know about what a masterpiece was or anything like that. I was just like, oh, this game looks cool. I played it, and I don't know. I don't want to speak out of, my butt and say, oh yeah, that studio sold enough to keep living forever, and it was all great back then. But I do think it's saying something that I feel like I can see back in my mind, like when I was the same as like these Clair Obscure fans, or even Clair, like the Subnautica 2 fans came out in droves to support Subnautica 2. And I'm sure a lot of them aren't as ingrained in video game culture as we are.
Yeah.
So to answer your, I mean, what do you think about your own question, Claire?
I mean, I kind of think for me, kind of to answer, to get back to your original question, which I think ties it together. I feel oftentimes like there's just so much, so many games to play, so many, demos to check out. The cozy game specific like space has just exploded in the past decade, so that and also, there are so many games that are trying to capture those lightning in a bottle experiences that other games have had and then replicate it. Like Hades blew up, and then suddenly we saw so many other games that were trying to do what Hades did. Cozy games as a whole, like the Stardew, like, is a whole category unto itself right now, that I feel more critical than I probably would be, because I'll play a demo or I'll watch a trailer and I'll be like, this looks like Pokopia and I already have Pokopia, or what have you. This looks like Stardew. I'll just go play more Stardew. This survival game just makes me want to play more Subnautica again. I'll just go play Subnautica. I'll just go play Below Zero again. So it's a little bit of like, what does this game have that I don't see elsewhere? Whereas I think for someone who's not like looking at all of the games, they'll pick up a cozy game, a farming sim, and just be like, this is fantastic. I love this. I haven't played 40 of them. I'm just playing this one, and I think it's amazing. So I think I can see the critical thing, but for me, it's more of the overabundance and being surrounded by games all the time that just makes it feel a little bit like diluted for me, I think.
Hooper, I feel like I'm about to throw out a private conversation that we had, and I hope you're okay with it. And I might be paraphrasing here, but I think you and I were having a conversation being like, are there too many games?
Yeah.
Do you think there are too many games, to Claire's point?
Actually, this is like great to another point I kind of wanted to get into. I don't think that there are too many games, because I feel like games are more democratized than ever. And I say that in not a like douchey way, because I feel like that term has kind of been like co-opted in some ways, being like, we're democratizing free speech or whatever. Or we're democratizing betting on news. But I think the fact that you don't have to be beholden to the Toys R Us or the Walmart or the Best Buy that put your game on a shelf in front of people's faces to actually connect with players kind of changes everything. And it's also why I'm not terribly distraught that this old guard is kind of fumbling the bag in a lot of ways, where it's like, okay, Naughty Dog takes 6 years to put out a title when maybe they were, they had churned out tons of IP in their earlier history. Bethesda takes 15 years to put out a title. I can't be that upset about it, because like you said, too many games, maybe, but there's just so many hidden gems to find, right? And I appreciate that there are no longer these walls saying this is the game you should play, because this person who's a single dev didn't go through our publishing process and can't get on the PlayStation Store, the Xbox Store, whatever. You can just go to Steam and find it, or you can find a YouTube video and think it's cool because it surfaces it to you and you can go check it out. Dinch Attack is the perfect example of that, where I feel like most average people will have no idea that Dinch Attack releases. It is not advertised by PlayStation really, or Xbox, or any big publisher, but the fact that Densha Attack exists and it is as good as it is makes me say, okay, well, I can't be mad that I'm not getting, whatever, Blade in 2026 or 2027. Like, I can just live with that, and I can just play games in a different way and explore games in a different way. Jacob's thinking.
Hooper, let me tell you about the attention economy. No, I'm kidding. But also I'm not.
Let me tell you. Yeah, it's tough.
A 13-year-old who has an iPad can play Fortnite, can play Roblox, can play Minecraft, can play the forever game that has no ceiling to it. And to your point, the tools have been democratized to the point where it is easier than ever to make a game, but it's also it's harder than ever to make a game that hits.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Tools are democratized. That means that there's thousands of Steam games every month that come out that some are made with tools that we don't really fuck with. But
yeah. But
we're talking about a problem that has no solution. That has no clear-cut solution here.
I think that all three of us are just at a really interesting point in our hobby where we're seeing our hobby actually mature overnight, right? Like, gaming when we were growing up was so new and so fresh that everybody was trying anything, right? Like, we experienced Kinect, we saw Wii, we saw GameCube, like all these weird little things and constant iterations and all these different game ideas that are constantly changing. And I feel like it's just kind of all quiet now. Everything is kind of quieted down in terms of expectability or reliability or whatever, in terms of okay, the system has kind of figured itself out. It's not the Wild Wild West anymore. Indie creators have their space, and yes, it's harder than ever to put stuff out because there's so much content. The corporate giants have their space and they're dealing with their own issues, but they've kind of just carved out their own area. And I look at movies, and it's kind of the same deal where we just saw Obsessions and Backrooms have their big moment. But then there's also a billion random indie films that may light the movie scene on fire, but I'm just never going to hear about them because I'm not that deep into the movie world. But that's just a mature hobby, I think. There's really no getting around it. I don't know if you guys have this, maybe Claire, you can speak on this, if you have any other hobbies that you can parallel, whether it's books or music or anything like that, where you just feel they've matured to a point where you know what to expect.
I feel like for me that hobby is books and reading. I am a very casual enjoyer of books. And then I go on, Book Talk or whatever, and people are talking about oh, here are the 10 best new books of this year, or here's what to read if you like this book and you are so sick of how everything is all the same. And I'm I'm not in that place where I'm sick of reading the same thing over and over again, because I took a huge reading break after college because I was super burnt out, and I read pretty casually and I read for fun, and I don't think super critically about it because I read for fun. And I also really enjoy reading middle grade books, which is a wellspring of creativity and ingenuity, because that's what that genre is. But I know people are experiencing what I'm experiencing with games, with books. I'm not that deep into it. So I don't have that. And I think that that's a very mature hobby because it's books.
Yeah.
Although that industry is also going through a ton of changes right now because of, and I think all of the arts are changing right now because of technology, and just attention spans are shorter. So book publishing is going through a huge problem right now because people are just not reading books anymore, and AI is happening, and a lot of people are feeling the squeeze economically and not going and spending money on extras, which is affecting games and movies and books, and public funding for libraries is going away, which is affecting all of the things too, because some people get their video games from the library. So,
Claire, you bring up a great point. I think that yes, Hooper, games are maturing. The games industry is maturing. But I feel like we take the worst of some of our counterparts in film and book, and we truly get the worst of all worlds. Because at least when you democratize film, when you make it easy to just shoot with your phone and put it up on YouTube, we can have a whole ass conversation about whether monetization is fair. But at least there, cream rises to the crop strictly because of ABDs. Or if your average view durations are high, the cream rises, right? We don't have that with discoverability for games because there's a higher barrier to entry. You have to put your money in. Yes, on Steam you can get refunds, but like you have to put money in before you can even play, and you can probably spend more time watching free videos on YouTube than you can games. And then with libraries, with books, yes, they are running into issues with publishing, but they don't have DRM with physical books. You can go to a library and even, get a digital book. And so truly, what are the worst business practices in all other forms of entertainment? And games took it.
I don't know if I agree though. I don't know if I agree. Because
where are games better than, like, where do games shine?
I think games shine in the fact that I think you bring up a good point with YouTube, but even though YouTube is kind of like a, tangent of film, I think that if you truly want to be a filmmaker and you want to, because YouTube is its own, like YouTube in a way is almost like its own Steam library, right? Like where my mom isn't on YouTube watching people put out their indie films, right? Like if you want to actually be an indie filmmaker and get your work on the big screen, it's basically impossible. Like you have to go through a major publisher, and even if you have a big audience like Markiplier, he talked about how hard it was to get into so many theaters as an indie filmmaker and kind of funding everything himself. Whereas I think it's way more like wildfire here in the video game industry, where you have like a Balatro, and I know Balatros are rare, but it seems way easier to build a fan base, I think, expectations are a little bit rough because like, even if you have a game like, I don't know, trying to think of a good one. What's like a mid performing game?
I think of Wavetale, the game from 2021 that started on Stadia, way too much. So for the uninitiated, it's a Thunderful game, 2021. It is a surfing game. It is a 75 on OpenCritic. It is a game, when you said Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, that is a game that is the same level of quality as Ty, but using 2020's technology, that I'm sure because of its business arrangements, it was exclusive on Stadia and then launched on consoles and PC a year later, probably didn't do well. I play that game and think it's underrated, but it's a perfectly fine video game. What was the point you were trying to make, Cooper?
I think, and for video viewers, my camera's off. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I just feel, at least as somebody who's deep in the hobby, I feel like there's more opportunity to build your own little fan base and supporters of your game or your product and have that be a success by your own standards. Whereas, and this also might just be my ignorance, but like I hear when you're writing a book, there's just too many people writing books to where like your chances of blowing up and being the next Dungeon Crawler Carl are not like a Balatro. Like it is even more rare. Same with an indie film. Like if you're not doing like a horror film specifically, your chances of like actually having a movie be successful in the theaters is virtually none unless you're backed by a big, studio. So that's kind of where I feel like when I say that I feel like gaming is a little bit better, I just feel like the big boys are not the guardians of content really in gaming as so much as they are in film or books. But Claire, you also said you disagree.
I have two things to add. The first with books, I feel like when it comes to publishing your book and getting it out in bookstores and libraries through a traditional publisher, that I think is way more heavily gatekept than movies or games, because you have to get signed by the publisher and they're extremely selective. But I think that Steam does exist for writing. It's Wattpad or whatever online where people publish their own chapters and stories, and a lot of it is fan fiction, but some of it isn't, and some of it becomes other things, and that can take off too, where someone can publish something on a Wattpad, for example, and then it gets super popular, and then a publisher is like, wait, we want to monetize this, we're going to publish this as a real book. Or, someone will write a fan fiction about Twilight, and then it becomes 50 Shades of Grey, and it gets a ton of money for that person. On the other side of things, we were talking about, Jacob, you said, is there anything that games do well that other industries don't do well? I think for me, it's more of the opposite of there's a lot of really bad things those other industries are doing too. And when I think about film, I think about, in terms of blockbuster film, this trend towards super cheap CGI, because those people aren't unionized, and the people who do physical practical effects are, so less practical effects, and then the movies look worse, and there's all this crunch for those teams, and they're not making nearly enough money, and this big studios are putting out these extremely high budget films and making billions of dollars without actually giving it to the people who are doing the work. And there's a lot of bad going on there too, and a lot of cash grab stuff in the film industry, aside from art films and what it means to be a smaller creator. On the really big end side, there's just a lot of stifling of artistic creativity, I think, than what we used to see, especially with family films and talk about Disney. There's a lot of nasty stuff in that industry too.
Really quick, because I do have a couple more questions before we end this out. I also want to kind of touch on the music industry as well, because I recently saw this video Drew Gooden put out on YouTube, where he had a secret band, and he wanted to see how well he could make it without exposing his 1 million whatever YouTube subscribers to his band and artificially propping it up. And he talked about, it kind of delved into how controlling and parasitic Spotify is, in that basically all music except a tiny fraction goes through Spotify. That's how almost everybody goes through Spotify. And the way that these music creators get paid is kind of you get paid a percentage based off of how much you contributed to listening that month or whatever.
There's a pool of money that comes from a percentage of subscription fees, and that pool of money, even though streams are probably growing, that pool of money does not really change unless subscriptions go way up. And so you just get a cut of whatever that subscription is, and that could be diminishing over time.
And not only that, but he talked about how, we talked about with AI, there is this underlying scheme which may or may not be happening, where Spotify is basically seeding these artists into their own system that are monopolizing listening time, and effectively they're basically paying themselves back by
get rid of their cogs,
overshadowing
goodbye cogs.
And so I feel when you talk about indie music artists, right, you're not getting paid off of Spotify. I have a friend who's in a band that is pretty successful, I would say, but he's not a millionaire. He tours very, very frequently, but it's still and you hear this all the time, even with maybe some B-less singers and artists as well, where it's your tour is your money, and even tours are hard to be successful nowadays. Whereas video games, once again, still very hard. And I think it's tough for us because we are so tapped in that we see every notable studio closure as it happens every day or every week or whatever. But I still think that gaming is democratized enough to where you can circumvent Sony Microsoft, Steam to an extent in terms of like they don't have to be your publisher, and still be okay, right? Like we just saw Mina the Hollower, which took forever. Yacht Club, had a lot of successes, but they were very honest in saying we need Mina to sell well if we are to survive at all. And they were lucky enough to do that without strings. And that's like a very, very, they're still on the higher end, but I still think there are games that kind of deploy is a weird word, but like release to their specific audiences and like, okay, we made, $20,000, $30,000. This is a success in our book, even though me, you, and Claire may have never heard of it. Jacob, closing thoughts here.
Right now, there are 25 million people playing games on Steam. So let's assume that there's 150 million people that play games on Steam regularly.
Sure.
itch.io is the place where the weirdos put their weirdos non-derogatory, where they put their cool art that we enjoy.
Yeah.
I would imagine that folks like us are probably in the 1% of the most hardcore fans of we watch Skill Up, we listen to multiple podcasts a week, we make content, and we go out of our way to seek out the weird, cool shit. There's 1.5 million games on itch.io. If you are putting out a thing on itch and you aren't already backed by other projects, by a social following, how the hell are you going to get discovered by even the hardcore like us?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately that's just a reality we have to be okay with. I think basically every other medium has succumbed to this idea that, hey, if I'm making art, you can't be in it for the money, because as time goes on, it's less and less likely that you're going to basically be able to make it big on your art. Like you kind of have to solely rely on building something creative, and it may be seen or it may not be seen, but ultimately that's just that's how all developed industries are. Like I can't necessarily say that in books or movies or music there is all of the best of the best still get seen. There's a lot. Everybody has their own favorite like indie artists, indie YouTubers, niche books that they love that somebody has never heard of. But to kind of move this on a little bit, because I do want to get to 2 more points before we wrap up, tying this all in, I do think that the gaming industry, we talked about it maturing. I do think there's an interesting aspect to all of this where there's like a changing of the guard, right? Like, and I think it becomes more and more apparent as time goes on, where the Bethesdas, the BioWares, the whatever, like Naughty Dogs, Insomniacs, they were the people that literally were fueling the industry earlier, and they still are making games, just not as frequently, not nearly as frequently. And you're starting to see other big names come out and like stake their flag, like the Sandfall Interactives or whoever. I'm curious what you guys think about this. Like, do you see it as a welcome change? Are you sad and your idea is like you hope that these old guard kind of hang on and maybe change their ways to stay prominent? Or are you welcoming of like, oh yeah, like Sandfall is one of my new favorite publishers, and I'm just here to see who's pushing the industry forward at the moment? Claire, I'm curious what your thoughts on this, because you are in a different genre than I feel like Jacob and I typically play in. And you do have like your Subnauticas or whatever, but I feel like more than ever, the games that you gravitate to are more often by newer creators. Like it's very rare that somebody's repeatedly putting out banger products.
Yeah, and a lot more indie games and indie developers as well. So I honestly don't put as much stock, I think, into publishers when I'm looking at games. But it's also just, the way that I consume games and interact with the space has never been quite the same as Luke and y'all were. I'm like keeping tabs on what different publishers are doing. So I think in that aspect, I am more on the side of the casual gamer, where you say, oh, so-and-so studio isn't as prominent as this other studio, even though it used to be more prominent. And I'm like, okay, am I going to play the game that they're putting out? Am I going to like it? That's more how I think about it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you got Chucklefish, you got Haunted Chocolatier. People have been waiting on that game for a long, long time because it's from the Stardew dev. And I'm just like, there's a lot of other games to play that are like Stardew that I can play, and I don't need to wait because that's got his name on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily have like a sadness about that development. What I get sad about is when studios are shuttered whilst in the midst of creating something. Like when you hear about a game that was shut down before it was released, or a studio that just put out a banger and was shut down anyway. That kind of thing is what generates for me of like, that's not good to see.
Jacob?
Look, if a team loses it, quote unquote, I feel like that's an unfortunate thing that just happens sometimes. BioWare, for example, today, it's the ship of Theseus theory, where if you take every single piece of the ship and replace it, is it the same ship as the original? When you think of BioWare, is that the same company that made Mass Effect, the original Mass Effect trilogy? Probably is not. All the key creatives left, and that sucks, but it happens. I think the places where I wish the playing field was more level are things like, if you remember the whole .io/Donut County thing, or the 2048 threes controversy of, in both of these cases, these games were just straight up taken.
Wait. Can you give a TLDR? Because I don't even think I know what you're talking about.
So back in the day, Donut County, Ben Esposito, a wonderful indie game, was essentially just the concept was lifted and put into a game called Whole.io. Donut County came out first. Whole.io is essentially like a clone of that game. Came out, and more people know Whole.io than they do Donut County. Same thing with Threes and 2048, the mobile game where you make the numbers go higher, 2, 4, 8, 16, that little mobile tile game. Threes came out first, 2048 took it, and more people know 2048. When stuff like that happens, Clary made a mention of generative AI tools. I think that we are going to see more of these unfortunate clones because the tooling has made it easier to lift concepts and lift gameplay elements and lift into your own games. So that sucks. And when we have bad business, when we have publishers with unrealistic expectations of how the game is going to either deliver on the top end, or games take way longer to make than we thought because of scope, that shit sucks. And so as much as we are saddened over teams that lose their spark, I really hope that over time we don't run into more situations because of technology. It's easy to thieve, or publishers just look at their counterparts and go like, yeah, but the Fortnite though, we make that joke, but there are still publishers, I'm sure, who are chasing after 3 years ago's trends. And by the time the game comes out, trend is no longer trending.
Yeah.
To wrap us up here, I do want to kind of look to the future just a little bit. And I want to end on the question of, if you could ensure that one change was for certain, one thing was for certain, or whatever, true about the industry from 5 years from now in the future, what would it be? And it doesn't have to be super deep. And let's say, obviously, the thing that we would love to be true is that no studio can use Gen AI in 5 years. Like, that would be ideal. Or no publisher can buy, basically random indie studios and close them now. I'm curious, like, specifically for you guys, like when we look back at, what you thought about the past and what the fond memories you have on the past and like what you like about gaming now. I'm curious, what aspect of games do you think is the most important, maybe either for your personal enjoyment or for the maturity of games? And one thing I'll start with here, like if I could change one thing, it would probably be that development cycles are capped at 3 years. Like I know that won't end up maybe, making for the best games, and I know why that can't be for feasibility reasons, but I do look back at specifically certain moments like Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, and those being like such a pivotal moment in gaming, and I'm like, that could just never happen today. A lot of these games where you see teams iterating, Dishonored 2 to, seeing a Prey to, and I know this is 2 different studios, but whatever, like seeing these iterations on games so fast early on in our lives, even BioShock to BioShock 3 or whatever, we just can never see that in today's climate, with rare exceptions, but that would be my thing, that all development cycles get capped at 3 years. Do either of you have one? Because you're both, Claire's shaking her head. Jacob, you have a little more time to think.
Did you want to go first, Jacob? I have 2, but you already said one, Joseph, which is no Gen AI. That would be amazing. If we could just wipe that from the existence of the universe, like I would do probably something pretty drastic if I was given the option to make that happen. Obviously, I think that if we all just agree that we don't want it and we refuse to consume anything created with it, that could have a discouraging effect. But then you're also seeing, I was talking with Luke about this, the AI slop clones of games that have done well, and their idea is like, this cost us $150 to make. So if we get $2,000 worth of Steam downloads, great. Which is just, ugh. I think for me, my serious grounded in reality answer, although, maybe not, would be to see large scale unionization, for the games industry for developers, so that there were actual protections in place to prevent people from being laid off right after finishing a game that is doing well and making the studio money, and or making the corporate overlords money that they get to keep while firing all the people who actually did the work. That should be illegal. And just lots of worker protections in general that would come from being unionized, and that's so much easier said than done, and this country has a huge union problem. And then there's like international developers too that all have their own different rules and labor laws. But just as someone who has had the privilege of working in a unionized field for my entire career, I just like, I'm just like, there are so many benefits to being in a union that I just see other people not getting to enjoy. And I'm just like, there was a time when unions were everywhere, and it would be great if we could start to work our way back towards that and have more collective power from the workers.
Beautifully said.
Claire, it's so funny. My secret answer was going to be better labor protections.
Yay.
So you took that from me of, we talk about Nintendo, with everything going on with Microsoft and Sony at the moment. Nintendo said that they were raising wages by 10%. And I think everyone was just like, wow, look at this amazing company, Nintendo, doing the thing. And although we applaud them for raising base salaries by 10%, the reality is that the regulatory environment in Japan is just different than it is in North America or in Europe. And so, like, yes, you can applaud them for saying, like, thank you for raising everyone's wages, but also, is there regulatory at play? Probably. So that was my secret answer. My real answer is consumer protections for people that play games. I made a joke 2 weeks ago when the PlayStation thing was announced of like, hey, I look forward to the European Commission Director General of Justice and Consumers to make a statement on this. But like, think about the bodies in the US, in Canada, in the UK, in EU, who are the ones that actually make statements about things that are anti-consumer? The FTC certainly doesn't. And so whose responsibility, who is actually making those calls? I think there are bodies, like ones in the EU, that make statements on things that are anti-consumer. We talk about the Apple chargers and how Lightning is sort of bullshit and that we should get to USB-C. That seems like a small thing, but probably the most pro-consumer thing that any regulatory body has done in the past 5 years. Silly that that's the bar, but games don't clear it. And so if we buy a game, the game license shouldn't be able to be pulled from us. That should be a basic protection that every single game player has. If you buy a game, you should have a license to that game for forever. And if you don't, the EULA and upfront, it should say you are buying a game that has a 3-year license. And we should pay something equivalent to not perpetuity ownership of that game. I think this is going to get worse before it gets better. And I really hope that as PlayStation moves to cut discs, and as Microsoft will likely do the same thing because now it's acceptable, that regulators step in. And it won't be until 2029 in the US for reasons, but let's hope someday we do it.
So, yeah, you guys had so much. So your answers were so serious, and mine is like, let's cap development at 3 years. Thanks a lot, guys. I should have went last. What the hell? Yeah, Jacob. To your point, I like that because I do think that we have been protected a little bit by the fact that companies. There's been so much competition as the industry kind of like figures itself out that we have had certain ways to enjoy games cheaply, or there have been, non-built-in incentives to offer a lot of options for choice with games. But yeah, I think we are going to see the Appleification of certainly PlayStation, but maybe other aspects of gaming as well. So I agree with that. Cool. I want to end on a slightly more positive note because I thought this was going to be a hee hee ha ha, and then you guys are like, actually, Joseph, we're here to make change. I'm like, oh, okay. Let's go back to the past one time. What's like the silliest game that you can think of that has like a special place in your heart from like growing up, like where you think back and you're like, that game probably wasn't that good, but I still love it. I'll start off. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You go.
If you have it. Oh, okay. I was going to say there's one game that sticks out into my mind. I'm trying to think of like stuff I've actually beaten, but let me see. How goofy can I get here? I'm going to say Tak and the Power of Juju. I don't even know if I beat that game, but I remember for some reason I felt like that game was hot back in the day. I felt like people were talking about it. I couldn't tell you. I think THQ might have published it. I don't know. And I don't even know what even was the marketing cycle for that game. I can't remember. I just remember being like, yo, this is lit. Everybody's talking about Tak for like a week. I couldn't even tell you what console it was on, maybe GameCube. But
I feel like
Tak
that came to everything. Tak and the Power of Juju.
Probably.
It also
I didn't
became
know
a
anything
Nickelodeon
about
show at some point.
Oh, you're right. Actually, yeah. Tak had some IP power there. Also, Billy Hatcher. Billy Hatcher was also a weird one.
Yo, don't get me started about
cool.
Billy Hatcher. Billy Hatchet.
Billy Hatchet?
Billy Hatchet. That's it. Right?
Okay.
Billy Hatcher. No,
you're
right.
It's Billy Hatcher,
Billy
yeah.
Hatcher
I thought you were making a joke.
No.
Put some respect on my boy's name. Claire?
I had one and then I lost it.
All right.
I think I was just going to say, I don't know if silly is the right word, but when my brothers and I got our little Game Boy Advances, I think the first game we got that we shared between us was the Chronicles of Narnia licensed Game Boy game.
Let's go.
And that was, I think, my first experience of actually getting into playing a game with other people, because we'd like pass it back and forth and like talk about how we got past certain levels, and we were just little kids and we didn't know what we were doing. And I don't know, I think that was just kind of the start of it all, and it's just a silly little, it's so stupid.
Shout out to licensed games. We don't get those anymore.
I want to shout out Luke Lewis right now because Luke Lewis sent me a copy of Knack. And genuinely, I've wanted to play Knack and Knack 2 for a while now. And I only had Knack 2 because our friends at Video Game Plus had it on clearance a while ago. And I think I got a copy of Knack 2 for like $10 Canadian. And so like got Knack and Knack 2. Knack is supposedly not a great game. It's like a 58 on open credit. It's wild.
Right.
But if I had to go with sort of an older title that is a little silly, I think of two. And I think both of them involve kangaroos. One of them is Cow the Kangaroo, KO the Kangaroo. It was a boxing kangaroo that had 3D platform. And it's like, what's the rung below Tak and the Power of Juju? It's KO the Kangaroo. No offense to people who worked on KO the Kangaroo 1 and 2. I think there were 2 games. But the second game, maybe not a kangaroo, a rabbit instead. I think way too much about the Adventures of Cookies and Cream. If you remember this game.
What?
It's actually from
I did not know this game.
I think it's either a FromSoft game or it's a game from the team that went on to form Hazelight. I have to go back and look at this, but essentially,
a FromSoft game would be crazy.
The Adventures of Cookie and Cream is a From Software game.
Oh my god!
Okay.
And so in 2000, this game came out, and the whole thing was it was a rabbit and maybe a kangaroo. No, 2 bunnies. They're 2 bunnies. And it is a game that you play with one controller, but each stick controls a different one of the bunnies.
Wow.
That game is silly as shit, and it's a from software game. So maybe you can find it. You can find it on PS2, but they also released it on Nintendo DS. So the Adventures of Cookie and Cream.
It's a From Software game from 2000, which means it is impossible to play.
Yeah, you're not beating that. You're not beating Cookies and Cream, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, it is one of their first games, and you'll never play it.
Cool. Also, Jacob Cow the Kangaroo, KO. They remade that, right? Back in 2002, or like made a 3D version or something like that.
They did?
Yeah. I remember seeing it, being like, "What is this?"
I swear that's been a video game trivia question at some point or other.
Yeah, they made a KO the Kangaroo game in 2022 that was just KO the Kangaroo, and I'm not sure if that's it's a new adventure, but they started back at 1. So here's the thing:
Jacob playthrough.
You need a playthrough of mine. You can get it on the Nintendo Store right now for $3.38.
That's not bad.
Guess I'm buying myself some
You're
KO
losing
Kangaroo.
money not buying it.
Uh-huh.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. This was a good time. We talked about a lot here. Once again,
What the hell am I going to title and thumbnail this, Hooper?
Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah,
we
thanks.
went a lot of directions where I was not. I had a very different episode in mind, but this was fun. I really liked the conversation about like books, movies, and games. That was all a very interesting conversation.
How do we make games better? Is that the title and thumbnail?
Ooh, that could be good.
SEO baby.
But until next time, we're gonna have better topics, or not better, but like we're gonna have different topics. But until then, until you know what our next topic is, you can do 4 things for us. You can follow us on BlueSky at Crossplay Convos. You can subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram. You can send this podcast to a friend because that's how people hear about podcasts. You can give us a review on your podcasting platform of choice because it really helps. Guys, we're going to set our status to away. We're leaving. And all I got to say is stay cool, nerds.